I'll send an email out with the summary on it, on choice, and that might be any kind of problem. But the reason I say it's your own choice, that leaves you with the flexibility to choose something you're interested in. Some of us are interested in production agriculture, some in hydroponics, some in water issues, some in soil issues. So we have different wants and desires in this class, and so focus on what you want to look into. It's almost like a free territory here. You're allowed to and encouraged to and graded by your interest in a topical area. Farm prices. If you're a land poor farmer and you want to start your own farm, how do you buy the land? What are farm prices doing lately in the North Central Florida area or an area you want to live? That's a trend in and of itself. What are our water issues coming to in the state? You know, it still rains quite a bit. We're in subtropical Florida, and yet we have water problems. Probably related to the fact we have 19 million people in the state. You know, it's one thing to be in an arid state that gets 9 inches of rain a year. If you only have 200,000 people in the state, you can make things work. But, as we've shown here in Florida, even with a bunch of rain, 50 inches a year, if you got 19 million people in it, and sandy soils that either goes right through or runs right off, you can create problems. And we'll have water problems until we decide to do something about that. So, your choice, I don't care. But that opens it up to be something you're interested in. An accompanying report, 8 to 10 pages, double spaced, and not with the 4-inch margins, so you have one like that. We're past that. And reference, with the references in there, the notations. So what else do I have? Okay. Plan on the presentation. 10 minutes, approximately 10 to 12, with 5 minutes Q&A. Questions and answers. And the part about that, it's not being evil, but everybody at some time in their career is going to have to get up and explain something. I don't care if it's a Monday morning hardware meeting where you're on a big project and you're late. And so you've been tasked with coming up and answer on how come the pumps aren't showing up from the vendor, what can we do to speed up that construction time on that to make that work. Whatever problem you're into, you're going to have to get up in a meeting and say something. I'm going to give you an assignment. So everybody needs a chance to do that. That's number one. Number two is, the other part is work to your strengths. Some people are very good at talking, other people less so. So if you have part of the report that's basically a list, or we did this, a functionality, or something that's kind of boring, you know, have the person that's a little more, less comfortable speaking do that part. So it's also an exercise in working with a group and coming up to your own strengths and weaknesses. So that's also another part of this. We have people in here that are very effective public speakers and could do the whole thing. That's not the point. Just like in the construction class, we always have people that have experience and could do every single one of the labs. Get out of the way, I'll do it by myself. Not the point. The point is that we're going to be managers, we're going to work in groups, and on Monday morning, you hardly ever get an A team. Somebody's sick, somebody took another better job, you had to fire somebody, or somebody got a DUI over the weekend. Whatever, not everybody's there on Monday morning, so you have to make do with what you got. And this kind of exercise is part of that. The fun part is you get to look at anything. And this is the part that's really interested me throughout the years, is that you get some interesting topics. Unbeknownst to me, you guys are interested in all sorts of things. So that's a kind of fun part. We actually had one student did the trends on computer chips and Moore's Law. Okay, that's kind of fun. And water is a big topic. It doesn't take very long to figure out what's happening with water by looking at some simple trends. You've seen in the newspapers lately all the articles about the springs, the health of the springs. And we're in agriculture, so we are tied with that very well. But I can tell you in the 20 years we've lived here, the spring health is noticeably worse. You know, you go to Itchitucknee, and we just kayaked down to Itchitucknee for visitors all over the world, and they exclaimed about the beauty. What my wife and I did not say is the blank water is green. It's not blue anymore. 20 years ago it was blue, it was clear. Now it's green. It's not the same. It's beautiful, but only in the sense that you know it right now. If you have no history with it, you don't know it's changed. It's already changed. So it's, yeah, it's beautiful, but you know, sometimes I just want to beat the canoe paddle up against the tree trunk as I go by in frustration. But it's still beautiful. Anyway, so you got Dr. Schultz in with trends, you got Dr. Kieker with decision making. Next week you get Dr. Frace, the man. Oh my gosh, does he got some fun stuff. Only place in the country his work's being done. Only place. And basically some funding came from a Risk Management Association, RMA, associated with National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. I believe I have this right. And people worked on all sorts of things. We're the only group that focused on agriculture. And so put together the Southeast Climate Consortium and people in this building with head of talent related to climate. And what you find out is the El Nino, La Nina effect. The Western Pacific, when the surface temperature of the water, it gets either warmer or cooler, that has a dramatic effect on Florida weather. And if you look at rainfall in particular, it's almost like a switch. Sometimes you get very, very dry springs, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get wet, soggy winters, and sometimes you don't. And it has a pretty dramatic effect on crop yields depending on what you plant. And the nice part is you have a 6-month precursor. You can tell 6 months in advance the odds on having one or the other. So if you knew 6 months in advance what to plant, the first time I presented this in this class about 5 years ago, guy in the back of the room, you heard a thunking sound of his head hitting the table. It showed something. I said, and if you had this kind of scenario like we did last year, it wouldn't be a good year to plant this crop. And that's what he planted. He lost the whole crop. Planted bell peppers and lost everything. Just a bad year for bell peppers. Now, as Dr. Frace will tell you, it's a statistical, empirical, and analysis-driven product, so it's got odds to it, so it's never perfect, but as one person that I work with said when, let's see, he told his boss that the heat transfer coefficients between the chips and the circuit breaker board were no better than 50%, plus or minus. And his boss said, 50%? What good's that? And his response was, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, sir. So, again, it's the best we have right now. And in a lot of cases, it's a pretty good prediction. And he's the guy that put it all together. Right now, he's putting together apps, so you can bypass the whole computer on the desktop thing and go right to your cell phone. He's working with whole foreign nations. He did a presentation in Nepal and Paraguay, and they want to develop everything we have here for a whole country. The Florida Automated Weather Network, plus his analysis tools, they go county by county throughout the whole southeastern part of this country and give you rainfall, crop prediction, planting date. It actually has a planting date planner in there where you can say, well, I'm growing peanuts in Levy County, and I'm going this cultivar, and I'm going to irrigate. When should I plant? And we had one of our, Ellie, you know Ellie, yeah, she, part of her family has some land up northern part of the state that they rent out. I'm going to have to tell my dad, I think our renter planted his peanuts too late. I never heard the end of that story, but again, that's the kind of tools you'll hear about from Dr. Frace, and they're very interesting and very analytical and very powerful. My point on that is for the rest of us that are not going into agriculture, like where would I use these kind of tools? If I could tell in advance if I'm going to have a colder than normal winter, who else would use that?
Well, people would.
Yeah. A power company, utilities, your heating oil, your natural gas, Man, if I knew ahead of time that everybody's gonna be buying natural gas, man, I'd go to the futures market and buy a whole bunch, sell it back when the price peaks. Exactly, very good.